It is clear at this point that the world that has been submerged for ages is waiting for someone to destroy the Red Line and bring about the dawn of a new world. Even so, some of the mysteries of the world of One Piece remain unexplained to date, so I wanted to make this video to explain some of these mysteries concisely and logically. So, prepare yourselves to be amazed, as most, if not all of these mysteries will ultimately link up to give you a greater perspective on how people survived the deluge and what needs to be done. Let us begin.
こうだ。海底のより深くに大空洞があり、そこに低温の海水が流れ込む。下からの地熱で生じた膨大な蒸気の圧力は海底での爆発を引き起こす。それは海を吹き飛ばし、空への海流をも生み出すほどの大爆発だ。
The knockup stream was one of the most intriguing phenomena introduced pre-time skip. The closest theory given to us was that of Mont Blanc cricket, who claimed that there were large cavities on the seafloor, which were infiltrated by cold seawater, which was then heated up by heat coming from below the seafloor, converting the water into steam. The resulting pressure led to a massive explosion, one large enough to send the sea flying and send a current into the sky. If we analyze this theory and add a few details given to us recently by Dr. Vegapunk, we could theorize that this phenomenon only became possible due to the rising sea levels. These cavities on the seafloor were most certainly part of the old continent, submerged by the rising seas. Even so, Cricket ended by saying that no one was dumb enough to jump in and find out. The author thus foreshadowed the ancient kingdom's history, using the world's topography and the mysteries of the Void Century. A consequence of using the ancient weapons greatly scarred the old continent, leading to rising sea levels. It is this deluge that Emu plans to use to eradicate all the people on the surface of the land so that only the gods who dwell atop the Red Line can survive such an event. In other words, we might be witnessing the advent of a new Void Century. This flood was probably what Joy Boy was trying to avoid 900 years ago, which explains his letter to the Mermaid Princess. This also explains the presence of the massive ark called Noah on Fishman Island. With the deluge being inspired by the biblical story of the Great Flood, the Ark of Noah must therefore have been for a purpose similar to that of its biblical origins, to save all the inhabitants of the old continent from the incoming catastrophe. In chapter 648 of One Piece, the Sea Kings mentioned that a certain clan was needed to repair the damaged Ark. The subtle hint given to us by the author was the clan. The Sea Kings ended by saying that times have changed. There are many clans whom they might have alluded to, but the main clan or race that came to mind was the Buccaneers, and here is why. The Ark of Noah would have been symbolic, as it would have enabled the citizens of the old continent to survive their ordeal. Therefore, the members of this clan must also have wanted to save as many people as possible. This is extremely important, as we were recently introduced to a character who embodies this ideal perfectly. I am talking about Bartholomew Kuma. Throughout Kuma's short backstory, Oda made it a point to highlight his constant desire to save as many people as possible, an ideal which he stated in chapter 1096. He said he would use this to save as many people as possible if he had any power. Oda used the God Valley incident to highlight the contrast in ideals between the Buccaneers and the Celestial Dragons. This theme was central to Kuma's character development. Kuma, who embodies the zeal to spread freedom and peace, is constantly pitched against Saint Jagartha Saturn. In chapter 1096, Saturn declared that Kuma could either leave as a slave or die, as no other option was available for him. We had already seen what living as a slave meant for the Buccaneers, as Clap, Kuma's father, and his mother all died as slaves. The key point to note was that Saturn concluded that this is what the tides of time had decided. This is strikingly similar to what the Sea Kings said about the changing times. It is possible that the Sea Kings were alluding to the fact that the Buccaneers who were the closest to Nika were hunted down and exterminated, which is why the Sea Kings wondered whether the Noah could ever be repaired. Oda took this a step further, as Kuma's wish to save as many people as possible like Nika triggered Saturn, who claimed that that was the reason why the Buccaneers needed to be completely exterminated. To save as many people as possible from the Great Deluge, it was necessary to build an ark, as massive as that. That would have been the crime of the Buccaneers that ultimately led to their demise. This is why they have been systematically persecuted and killed ever since then. This day, and the events surrounding this day, was passed down from one generation to another in the Ryugu dynasty, but most importantly, it was the day of the promise made by Joy Boy. The systemic racism perpetrated by the celestial dragons toward the fishmen could thus be explained to have resulted because they were the only race that would survive from such an event. This ability of theirs must have caused the celestial dragons to drive them away from the surface, thus separating them from the rest of the world. The same thing could be said for the Lunarians, who initially lived atop the Red Line and who, thanks to their wings, would survive such an event, were also tracked down and killed, with their former home becoming the new home of the celestial dragons and the headquarters of the world government. So, to become the freest person there is, Monkey D., Luffy will need to return the sea levels to the levels that they were in the Void Century, by destroying the Red Line using the ancient weapons, and thus reforming the continent of the Ancient Kingdom, which is in reality the ocean floor, a massive continent inspired by our history, the massive supercontinent known as Pangaea. This is the same name that the author decided to give to the seat of the world government, Pangaea Castle. The world will thus be made up of a unique continent where people will be free to travel from country to country, surrounded by a unique sea known as the All Blue. A world without borders, where every nation will be part of a unique piece of land. This is the One Piece. The promise to the Mermaid Princess was not achieved with Joy Boy's defeat, so surviving the flood would have been extremely difficult, as many kingdoms were flooded. One of the best examples of a survival story shown to us came in the Water 7 arc. In this arc, we were introduced to two cities, the Old City and the New City. The Old City is constantly being flooded and will eventually be submerged by the sea. The New City, on the other hand, is a platform built on top of the houses. But what struck me the most were two important features. The first was the massive sinkhole in Water 7, which was close by and a relic of the Void Century. The other feature that struck me was the similarity in the design of Water 7 to Karo City in the Makomo Dukedom. Karo City is traversed by many channels that help to redistribute the water that floods the city when Zunisha floods its back with seawater. The same can be said for Water 7, which is a city traversed by numerous channels that also help to redistribute seawater. Zu has already been revealed as one of the most ancient civilizations, as it existed even before the Void Century. It is possible that the new city was modeled after Karo City during the Void Century, enabling the citizens of Water 7 to survive the Great Deluge. As for the other nations, many were fully submerged, whereas many of those affiliated with the world government were constructed in such a way that they could be protected from a flooding event. This was the second part of the theory. Let me know your thoughts about this in the comment section. As usual, I am your host Sean, and this is goodbye.